Welcome to Don't Hate, Automate using Google Apps Script. My name is Saurabh Gupta. I work in Google Developer Relations with Apps and Cloud Developer Relations team. This is our QR code for giving us feedback, so please get it, and we will get it when we start the QA sessions as well. So if you love Google Apps, if you use Google Apps, and you want to get more out of Google Apps, then this is the right session for you. If you want to be more productive using Google Apps, if you want to extend how you use Google Apps, like how you use Calendar, Contacts, Sites, Spreadsheet, then Google Apps Script is what you need to use. Today I'm going to talk about what is Google Apps Script, and more importantly, why you should use it, and what are the different types of use cases around Google Apps Script. Then I'm going to touch a little bit about what are the various services that are available in Apps Script and how you can use them. And I'm going to go over a demo application. And then I'm going to tell you how you can get started using Google Apps Script. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about I/O sessions that for tomorrow and day after. So by show of hands, how many of you have heard of Google Apps Script? And how many of you have used it? Quite a few. Interesting. Okay. So what is Google Apps Script? Well, Google Apps Script is a JavaScript engine in the cloud. That's the technical definition, but it's another way of saying you open up the browser, you write some code, and that code gets executed in Google servers, and you get the response back. But more interestingly, what it is that Google Apps Script does. So Google Apps Script lets you access Google APIs in an easy way. So if you want to access your calendar and automate some tasks using your calendar, you want to access your email, or you want to access some data in your spreadsheet, then you can do that using Google Apps Script. You can also integrate with third-party APIs like Twitter, Netflix, other APIs that are available out on the web, and Google Apps Script makes it easy for you to do that. Apps Script, as I said, is a JavaScript engine in the cloud, so naturally the JavaScript syntax is easy to use, and we have made it even simpler for users to use Apps Script. And I'm going to show you in the demo how easy it is to use Apps Script. So JavaScript syntax and classes are available to you. On top of it, we provide a wide range of Apps Script services which make the Apps Script a lot more meaningful and useful. So if you want to today go out of this session and say, OK, I figured out a use case as to why I want to use Apps Script, that's enhancing and extending your use of Google Apps. That's you automating a few of your tasks. But the more important question is, why you want to use Apps Script. So I'll share a personal story with you. So I have family in 3 continents. And we have a family calendar where we have all sorts of birthdays, anniversaries, everything. And we have reminders set up a few months ago. And 3 days in advance of anybody's birthday or anniversary, an email comes out. It's like Google Calendar reminder alert, somebody's birthday is coming up. And the email automatically goes in archive, and we forget about the person's birthday and all that. So my dad calls up and says, you work for Google, right? Can't you figure out a system where on the day of the event itself, a nice email goes out to the person whose birthday it is, and with the joke of the day or whatever, and then that starts a whole interesting conversation across all in 3 continents. I said, yeah, we can do that, absolutely. We have calendar APIs, Gdata APIs. We can write a neat app. I can do that. I can deploy that app in App Engine. I can put in a scheduler. That app will run every day for 40 people across 3 continents. So I said, yeah, well, we can do that, but I won't do it. It's just too much work, and it's not worth it. It's not worth my time. So there is automation right there, but the use case is too narrow. It's not worth my time. But, well, with the Apps Script, you can do that very easily. In 20 lines of code, without having to deploy anything, without having to write any code, you can do that. That's automation right there. Then there are other scenarios where Apps Script is useful in terms of automation. Say you want to produce a sales report every Friday night, and the sales figures are in the spreadsheet, and you want to perform some logic in the spreadsheet, get your data from spreadsheets, and then prepare a report and have it emailed to whoever you want to email it to. You can do all that stuff manually, but with AppScript you can automate it. Not only can you automate it, but you can actually set up triggers such that it gets executed at a particular time of the day or the week or month or whatever. So that's automation. So our goal is to make you use AppScript, Google Apps, in a way which is more meaningful for you. You can automate it. You can be more productive. So with the story I just shared with you, one of the key things in the story was that it was an interesting use case, but was it worth my time implementing a full-blown app, deploying an app engine? Well, with AppScript, it certainly is, because it's a very small script. It's implementing a very fringe use case, which has light volume, but it's still feature-rich. It still requires all those access to APIs, things like that. And if there is some breakdown, some change or something, then I need to be iterate very fast on it. And I need to access my calendar data, my spreadsheet data, along with some joke of the day site, some RSS feed somewhere, which is a third-party API, whatever. So I can do all of that and implement that very narrow use case for my purpose. Now, how is that useful to you? Well, if you are in an organization that is using Google Apps, or if you're using Google Apps for personal use, then you can still implement a lot of these different types of use cases. So for instance, if a law firm, say there's a law firm and there's like 10, 15 people, and you want everybody to book time, you can write a very small app which has some UI in it, where users book time, and the data goes into a spreadsheet, and you can generate reports, things like that. It's a very narrow use case, but you can implement it very easily using AppScript. So the third most interesting reason why you want to use AppScript is because it's cost effective. Now, I don't mean in terms of dollars and cents, but when I say cost effective, I mean in terms of how easy it is for you to implement, manage, and maintain this stuff. So with AppScript, you don't have to do any software deployments. Like, you don't have to deploy a software. You don't have to take a big jar, zip, tar, RPM, and deploy it on a machine. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to allocate machines or capacity, and you don't have to worry about any hardware allocation, anything like that. So those are the two big benefits right out of the bat. The benefits, obviously, these benefits derive from the fact that it's a JavaScript engine in the cloud. You open the browser, you write some code, that code gets executed, and so no software deployments, no hardware deployments. But then the other very interesting benefit of AppScript is that it is part of Google Apps Suite. So what it gives you is a context in which a script runs, and that context is loaded with the Google Apps and Google account identity. And now that's very important, because if you are writing a standalone app which uses calendar GData API, and you're deploying an app engine, then you have to worry about OAuth, you have to worry about authentication, authorization, all of that. But not in AppScript. In AppScript, when you write an app, and that app uses calendar services, for example, to access your calendar or some other calendar that you have access to, then authentication is already taken care of, because the app is running under your Google account identity. So that's a very big benefit. That's cost savings right there, because the barrier to entry to using APIs is very low now. You can access your contacts, your calendars, your spreadsheets, your sites, and a wide variety of other APIs. And I'm going to show you in an example what are the different types of APIs. So who should use AppScript? So our goal in the AppScript team is that anyone can script. We want to make it so simple that anyone should be able to open a browser and bold enough to write a script. It's not just us hardcore developers, but tech-savvy business users, educators, teachers who want to make classroom experience more effective. Students who want to even learn programming, it's a great way to do that. So right from, it's a app script sort of is for users for across a wide range of spectrum. For tech-savvy business users to hardcore developers, to educators, to students, to other types of business users. But our goal, and we want to make it so simple, and our goal is that anyone should be able to script. So how does someone use AppScript? And I'm going to show you in a demo, but if you concentrate on the right-hand side of the diagram here, so when an author writes a script, then a user can access that script through a Google Sites page. So an author can write a script and embed the script in a Sites page, a Google Sites page. And all of a sudden, your Google site becomes alive because you can do a lot more with AppScript and make your site's experience a lot dynamic. You can do the same thing for spreadsheets. So you can embed scripts in spreadsheets, access spreadsheet data, or make spreadsheet objects clickable, things like that. So scripts are exposed through spreadsheets as well. Not only that, you can expose scripts as standalone web applications. So you can write a script that accesses, that does whatever, and then you can publish it with a URL, and anyone who has access or permission, who you grant permission to access, can invoke that URL, and then all of a sudden, in a standalone way, they're accessing your script. And the fourth way how scripts are used are through asynchronous triggers, where a script could be time-driven. There's no specific user action to invoke those scripts, but it's sort of a trigger mechanism. So what are different types of AppScript services? So up until now, what we covered is why you want to use AppScript. You want to be productive. You want to automate a lot of the use of Google Apps tools. So, and you want to implement a wide variety of use cases. Like just yesterday evening at our GTUG conference, there were so many ideas that we figured out we can implement using AppScript, like accessing calendar and syncing calendar, things like that. And the third reason was it's cost effective. But how do you do that? So these are some of the variety of services. But before I start describing these services, I'm going to show you a quick little demo as to what AppScript can do for you. So I'm going to go into a Google site, which I have set up here. So this is a site. It has a whole bunch of different app scripts. But I'm going to focus on one particular app script, which is I call the training script. So this script is sort of a simulation of a training scheduling app. So this is for, imagine an organization which has, 100 people or 50 people, and it wants to offer training. And it signed up for a Netflix account, and Netflix has great training content available. So it wants to let its own members, organization members, employees, or school, or whoever, to search for Netflix titles, and then add those titles to a spreadsheet in a queue, and then schedule a training in a training calendar. So that's what this app is going to do. So this is one script which is embedded in a Sites page, and what I'm going to show you is how a Sites experience comes alive. So I'm going to click on training here, and all of a sudden the script gets invoked. So this is sort of a three-step workflow, where first I'm asked, okay, as a member of this organization, I'm asked, okay, choose a training category. So there are different categories, and these are all part of the script. Now, script has many types of services, so it's using UI services. So say, for instance, I want to learn a new language. So the script now pulls all the data. This is just one app script. It is pulling data from Netflix's OData API, getting information on titles that correspond to a certain genre, which is training or learning a new language or something like that. And then it's able to show those titles. Not only that, you would have noticed that it is interactive. It is not like one way where a script is able to just generate some random HTML. It actually was able to take some action when I selected a certain genre as to what I want to learn, something like that. So the script can actually write a full-blown UI application. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to write these types of UI applications. So let's go back to the language instruction and say I want to learn a new language, and say I'm in mood for learning Italian. So I can click on Add to Queue. So by clicking that, what I'm telling this, what I'm doing is I'm selecting this title, and the information of the title goes into a spreadsheet, which is a queue. And I'm going to show it just. So when I click on Add to Queue, then that's the next step in the workflow, and it asks me, okay, what is the training date that you want to schedule the training on? So I'll just give a random date here. So let's say 11, and I'll say, okay, I want to choose a, say, 11 a.m. slot. And I'll say schedule training. So as soon as I click on schedule training, click on it. So let me select it. Demo gods. Okay, let's try. Oh, there you go. So finally, we were successful. So by clicking on, by selecting a time and scheduling training, now the script actually created an event on the training calendar based on the selection that I did. So I'm going to show you a little bit. So let's see what it did. So let's go to the calendar, and let's reload it, and let's look at. Oops. Demo gosh, the calendar is. Okay, there you go. So I have an event scheduled from at 11. So this is the basic power of script. As to it now is able to enhance your site's experience, and all of a sudden your Google site becomes home for a lot of different types of office productivity, workflow, and other types of applications which are important, expensive to implement, are very narrow use cases, or maybe mainstream use cases, but still, expensive to implement and do not have enough volume that it justifies a full-blown development. So let's go back to our services here and discuss a little bit about what types of services AppScript has. So the first category of services that AppScript has are called the content services. So that's the topmost block right there with Spreadsheet, Sites, and Docs list. So with Spreadsheet services, you can access your Spreadsheets data using AppScript, and then perform any meaningful logic in it and do a lot more with it. Not only that, you can write custom functions and embed those in a spreadsheet. So it's AKA macro. So you can write a macro and then embed it in a spreadsheet cell. But you can also access your sites page data. So say, for instance, you want to create new announcements in sites pages. So if you have an announcement type page and you want to create an announcement, you can very easily do that by accessing sites APIs. So and docs list, for those of you who don't know what docs list is, docs list is when you go to docs.google.com and you see a list of all the documents that you have in your docs list. That's so you can manage your docs list. So you can manage permissions. You can script out permissions. You can maintain it. I personally use it to manage my docs list. Like, it can grow a lot larger because so many people share documents with you, but you want to organize it based on certain rule logic. You can certainly do that, and the script can run, say, weekly, nightly, whatever. So, but the idea here is that we want you to be able to take your data, sort of liberate it, allow you to do whatever you want to do with that data, and then do some more. So that's the first types of services, which are content services. And this particular code example, this is taken right out of this training application, which shows you how easy it is to use spreadsheet services. So in the first line here, you see I just use spreadsheet app.open, and I give the spreadsheet key, and then I get the sheet, and all of a sudden I have a reference to a sheet here. And then I can just get a range in the sheet using using sheet.getRange, if you see the third line in the code. And then I can very easily set values in the range. That's how easy it is. So not only it is easy to read data from spreadsheet, but you can do the same thing when you want to write data. And I'm going to show you an example in the editor how easy it is to use the editor, because the editor is sort of a mini IDE where it offers you code assist. It offers you capabilities where you can use these services very easily. So this chart shows you a little bit about what you can do with these different services. So not going to go into great detail. So the next type of services are messaging services. Messaging services are communication services where you can now access your contacts, you can access your calendar, you can send emails. So you can very easily write a script that accesses your contacts and a group of contacts or only a selected contacts, and then send them customized emails, for example. So that could be a very good use case for a lot of different data-driven communication that you may have. For instance, you may want to send in a report, the example of sales report. You may want to send in to only certain people if the sales numbers are low or high or whatever, right? So you can now access your contacts, you can access your calendar, and you can interact more meaningfully and in an automated way with people around you who are also using apps. So this code snippet is an example of how easy it is to use calendars, for example. So you use calendar app, get calendar by ID, and all of a sudden you have access to your calendar. How cool is that? And then you can use standard JavaScript date functions to instantiate date classes, and you can create an event. So for example, in our example about sales reports, say if the sales numbers come in low and you want to take an action automatically where you want to schedule an event with a group of people or calendar event, then you can certainly do that. You don't have to manually look at something. You can do those kinds of things in an automated way. Use of calendar API, for instance, comes in very handy if you're managing events. Then let's talk a little bit about third-party integration APIs. So not only can you use AppScript to integrate with a lot of Google Apps products, as I just mentioned, calendar, contacts, spreadsheet, sites, and others, but you can also access third-party APIs. And in that example that you just saw in the training application, we used URL fetch APIs in AppScript to connect to Netflix's OData API. Using URL fetch, you can also connect to APIs that require OAuth-based authentication. And AppScript really makes OAuth very simple for you. So if you have a use case where in a sites page you want to fetch data from an API that requires OAuth, you can do that very easily in one line of code using URL fetch. But that's not. We have SOAP APIs. We have JDBC connectivity. So if your database server is available, accessible, using JDBC from Google servers, then you can run JDBC queries. You can access a bunch of SOAP APIs if the SOAP interface is what you're using for. But the overall idea is that we want you as Google Apps users to be able to extend the way you want to use Google Apps. We want you to be able to implement all the different types of use cases that you could using AppScript. So this is a code snippet which shows you how easy it is to fetch data. And this is the exact cut and paste from the training application that I just showed you. So we form a URL here, which is from OData, Netflix's OData APIs. And then we form a full-blown request. And we just say URL fetch app.fetch, and we then parse the result. It's that simple. And if I were to use, say, Twitter's API, which required OAuth, it wouldn't be any longer than that. It would be probably 4 lines, just like what this is. So the fourth major category of app script services are UI services. And they are actually quite interesting. So using UI services in app script, you can create very functional, meaningful, good-looking UI applications, as you just saw in the training application. So the underlying implementation of UI services is Google Web Toolkit, without all its complexity. So using AppScript, you can use UI services to write UI using JavaScript, without having to worry about compiling your Java code. And if you were to use Google Web Toolkit, without having to worry about a lot of different complexity that comes with deploying web apps, things like that. Using UI services, you can very easily assemble UI components, all the widgets that are available, deploy it in a sites page or a standalone application for that matter, and you'll be all set. And I'm going to show you in a little bit as to how you can do that with one particular example. So this is an actual cut and paste from the training application, where it shows you how easy it is to create a list box. So I'm going to show you how to create a list box. Let me copy this code, and in an actual live session, I'm going to show you in a live editor how easy it is. You can see this all right. So let me copy this code. So copy the code, and let's go to so if you want to create a script in a sites page, then you click on More Actions in a Google site, and then you click on Manage Site. As soon as you click on Manage Site, you will see app scripts here on the extreme left. You click on app script, and then you will see a list of scripts that you have available in that Google site. So here we want to write a new script just to show you how you can use app script. So we launch the editor, and we write a script. So I've just copied some code. So before I do that, each script that is embedded inside needs to be called doGet, because it's a get call. Then I will say I want to start a new application. So I'll say UI app, and you can see the content assist in the editor. So how easy it is for you to write a script. So I create a new application. Then I will paste the code. So I want to create a list box label, which actually shows a label saying choose the category. So I say app.createLabel here, and I set some text. So I don't have a decorate function, and I don't want to decorate right now, so I'll just remove it. Then I will create a list box. Category list box equals app.createListBox here. So it's that easy to create a list box. And I set a name and an ID. This comes in handy when you are implementing callback handlers. For example, if I'm selecting a particular list item and I want to have a backend action on it, then it becomes easy. So, and I add items to this list box. So now I have a label and a list box, but I need to add them to my application, right? So I say app.add. First, I will add this label, for instance. And then I will say app.add, and then I will add the list box itself. Now I could make it a lot fancier. I can have vertical panels, horizontal panels, flow panels, things like that. The types of panels that you are used to in Google Web Toolkit. You can have those types of widgets as well if you are developing a complex UI. So once I have assembled my application, I can just return my app, and I'm all set. So let's save the script. So I'll say BootCamp lecture or something, and I save the script. So once I save the script, now I need to make sure that I have to embed this in a page. So I create a new page, and I call it bootcamp session. So once I create a new page, I can insert the script as a gadget. So now I'm editing a page, a sites page. I click on insert on the extreme left, and you can see app script gadget here. You click on app script gadget. Oops, did I go Picasa here? Okay, insert app script gadget. And you will see a list of scripts that are available. So here's our bootcamp lecture script. So we select it, and now we can provide as to who can access this script. So I can ACL it in the way I want. So I say that let only myself execute it, for instance, and I can give the height and the title and all that. So I'm not going to tinker around with that. So all of a sudden, what I've done is I've embedded a script in a sites page. Now this script could do anything. It could access any of APIs, calendar, context, sites. It could be a workflow. It could be an expense report. It could be a time booking application. It could be any of these things. And it could be a UI application which leads you through certain workflow. But now, because you are Google Apps users and you have a site, you have a place to point to those applications. So it gives you a structure. It enhances the site's capability. It allows you to use various Google services, apps, APIs in a much easier way. So let's save this. So once I save it, you can see the script got executed because I'm on that page, and I've just implemented the list box here. Now the list box doesn't do anything because we have not put in handlers here. So what are handlers? So let's go back to our presentation real quick here. Okay. So as you can see in this code, the last few lines, you can associate events with each UI object. So in the case of a list box, you can associate a change event. And you can tell, you can provide the name of the function, and this is the name of the function here, which needs to be executed when somebody selects a list item, for instance. This is very similar to what the types of handlers that are available in Google Web Toolkit, but this is a lot simpler because you don't have to worry about some of the additional complexity. So as soon as you give the name of the function that needs to be executed when somebody or a user selects a list item, then you have set up a very dynamic list box. So there are different types of server handlers. There are click handlers, change handlers, selection handlers, things like that. So you can have a very meaningful, very rich, you can create a very rich UI using UI services. So let me talk a little bit about triggers and what they are. So triggers are an asynchronous way of executing app script. You can think of triggers as cron's cousin, sort of. So there are two types of triggers. There is a time-driven trigger, which allows a script to execute at a certain frequency in a time-driven fashion. And then there are event triggers. Event triggers are triggers when a user performs a certain action, a script gets executed. For instance, when you can set up a trigger on your spreadsheet. For instance, when say a user opens a spreadsheet, you can have a script executed in an asynchronous way without the user actually who opens the spreadsheet, not knowing or not getting impacted by it. So there are certain types of event-driven triggers which are very useful in certain use cases. The time-driven trigger, as I said, is cron's cousin, where you can set up frequencies at which you want to execute the script. So how do we make it easy for you to write scripts? So I'll go back to the script editor, and in the script editor you will see some IDE-like similarities, and this is all, by the way, a browser, right? So you will see we have a debugger here. So you can set up breakpoints, and then you can run the script in a debugger. So it's very easy for you to debug scripts. You can also add collaborators. You can share scripts. So you click on share. So you can add collaborators to your script. So 2 people or 3 people can write the same script. You can publish this script as a service. So what this means is that you are publishing this app as a standalone service. So when you click on publish as a service, then it gives you a URL, and you can distribute this URL, and this script can be executed with outside of sites or spreadsheets. So using UI services and publishing that app that uses UI services as a standalone service, you can write web app really, really fast. It's probably one of the fastest ways to write a web app. You don't have to worry about any deployments or all of the stuff that we talked about. It's like you just use the UI services, write a UI, and then publish it as a service, and you are all set with a standalone web app. And then you can also publish your script, like you can share it with other users. And when you click on publish script, you actually can publish your script in a gallery. And we have a gallery of scripts where our community has contributed hundreds of scripts across different types of use cases. So it's a great way to get started using AppScript. Is you go to the gallery, you look at the script or the use case that you want to solve, and then you go to that particular category and then start writing the script. And you can publish scripts as well. You can manage your triggers, I just mentioned, which is you can click on all your triggers and you can see if you have any triggers, and then you can even have notifications on triggers. So for instance, in my example about the family birthday email thing, say for instance I set up a trigger and that trigger starts failing, I would receive notifications. So I can avoid that uncomfortable scenario where somebody did not get their birthday email, something like that. So how can you get started using AppScript? So there are AppScript is very easy. You can just go to a spreadsheet or a site and open the browser or start writing code. But if you prefer a little bit structured approach, then you can go to our documentation site, and it has a wide variety of references, tutorials, which walk you through actual use cases. You can also participate in our forums community, which is very, very active, and it's a great place to share ideas. And I just mentioned you can use Gallery to get started, which is, say you're looking for a mail merge solution, for instance, right? You can go to our gallery, look for mail merge scripts that are out there that our users have shared, and that could be one starting point for you. And then you can look at a wide variety of case studies that we publish from time to time as to how our users are using AppScript. So you can follow our AppScript blog or Google Apps developers blog, and you will find very interesting case studies on how to use AppScript. And I'm going to walk you over a little bit about our documentation. So you go to Google AppScript documentation, and you can access all the docs. And this is a healthy reference, and that we have like a wide variety of services, and this list is growing. But not only that, we have a whole bunch of tutorials for beginners, intermediate, and advanced use cases. And then if you click on support, then you can access our forums and issue trackers, and you can see how active our community is. So our tutorials are a really great way to start using AppScript. I'm also going to plug our I/O sessions. So tomorrow, between 3:45 and 4:45, you should definitely be in room 2 to see what's new with AppScript and what different types of use cases you can implement, and what more we are doing to make this AppScript experience a lot better. And then there's another session on May 11th at 1:45, again in room 2. You want to be there in this session, because in this session we are going to cover specifically about enterprise workflows and how you can implement those workflows using AppScript. And this is going to be a wonderful session because you're going to see a wide variety of ways in AppScript can be used to solve common workflow to create common workflow applications. So with that, I'm going to take a few questions. Thank you.
say you wanted to have 2 scripts on one page. How do you deal with global namespace clashes?
So I don't think we are supporting 2 scripts in one page at this time. There might be some issues with that. So this is a very interesting use case. Never come across it. We are not. I don't think we are supporting at this time.
Okay, 2 quick questions. First is, so one limitation I've found with the Google Spreadsheets is that you can't do macros. Like I like to program macros to do grunt tasks for me. It seems like this is a great way to do that. But the problem being that once I'm in Google Spreadsheets editing my data, I can't just press like control custom key, control X or something and execute my macro. But it seems like you can you make an editable spreadsheet on a Google site using this, which also can run macros on, as you're entering data, you can run macros. Seems like this is a way around the problem of not having macros on Google Spreadsheets, maybe.
So let me rephrase the question. So you want to write an app script which sort of simulates a spreadsheet but gets embedded in a sites page.
Right, which allows you to quickly
Right.
do modifications on the
Right.
data.
So you can implement a sort of a spreadsheet using a grid, an editable grid. But it wouldn't be a full-blown spreadsheet that you are used to, right, with all your formulas and everything else. So there might be some shortchanging of experience in terms of what you may get with spreadsheet. But there is certainly a grid-like controls out there in UI services that you can use.
Okay, the other quick question is, I know there are other ways to do this. And maybe a naive question because I haven't used Google Checkout much, but can this interface with Google Checkout? Can I put a Google Checkout functionality on my website that's linked through this and charge people money for things?
Right. So what I didn't talk about, because this was 101 session, is about the permissioning model of AppScript, right? So because AppScript is sort of a productivity tool, it is meant for you to enhance the overall experience of apps and how you can extend apps. So there are certain restrictions in terms of security model of how a script executes. So for instance, if you write a script and embed it in a sites page, then whenever, and say you distribute the link to the sites page to all the users in your app's domain, for instance, then whenever a user hits that link, the script executes as you, under your identity, right? So there might be identity restrictions and things like that. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I noticed when you're trying to share your script, when you try to create a URL, you had 2 options. I could run this script and everybody can run this script. Can you make it so, I don't know, me and 3 other people can run this script also and nobody else, rather than just me and everyone?
So if you are a non-apps domain user, like a regular consumer user, meaning if you have a Gmail account, then it's you or everyone and everyone else. That's the choice for now. But the AppScript is meant for apps domains users to so that they can get a better experience out of apps, right? So the most common scenarios are where scripts are shared to users who are within the same domain. So that's a very common use case. And for instance, in an educational institution, a professor would share a sites page with a group of students, things like that, and all of them are in the same apps domain. Yes, please. Okay. Yes.
Hi. We are Google Enterprise customers, so we use Google Docs, Google Enterprise sites, etc. But for some of the CRM capabilities, we use Salesforce.com. And there are some cool things we actually want to implement in-house for our internal people. One thing I wanted to ask is the gadgets you added to a sites page. Can we add a gadget to an email page so that somehow we can sign into Salesforce.com, and when you say create a task on this, it will give me a pop-up, get some data from Salesforce.com, and then post data back from Salesforce.com to Salesforce.com. So is that kind of it's a little bit more complex, but I mean, doesn't it's not that tough because I can see you can call a REST API, which exists for Salesforce. We can add a gadget which exists. So is that possible?
So if I rephrase your question, so what you want is to be able to write a script which can be served up in Gmail, and the script gets executed as a gadget, right?
Yeah, as a side gadget.
Right. So stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned. Yep. Any other questions? Yes, please. Yeah, you can copy paste. It's all available. So if you can share a script through the gallery. So the question is, can you copy a script? So you can do it in multiple ways, and we are actually expanding on this a little bit in coming weeks and months. But as of today, you can copy a script and cut and paste. That's basic, right? But you can also share it in the gallery. So if you publish your script to the gallery, somebody can download that script, and that's another sharing mechanism. Yes, please. Right. I'm sorry? Not at this time. Yeah, but that's an interesting one. But the idea of AppScript is because it's a productivity tool, right? So we want your sites experience, your spreadsheet experience, your mail experience, calendar experience to be much elevated, right? And we want you to be able to implement those use cases that I just talked about. Yes. Yes, please. Sure. Okay. So the question is, can I show gallery? So I'm doing a real quick here. So I'll go to the editor, and say, for instance, I click on File, and I say Add Script from Gallery. And there you can see a wide variety of scripts that are available across different types of. So these are scripts that users have shared. They are, by the way, great starting point for you to write a script. So if at a time like this at 6 o'clock you wished you had more hours in a day, and you wanted to automate a few things, start with the gallery. See what you did today which could have been automated, and maybe there's a solution out there. Any other questions? If you have questions, you want to get started, you can post on the forum. Community is active. Googlers are on it. I am on it, and we constantly look for users to share ideas, and if they have any problems, we are constantly helping them out.